Happy National Roller Coaster Day, and you are listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I've got another very special guest this week. He is the Vice President and General Manager of Valleyfair Amusement Park in Minnesota. Please welcome to the podcast, Raul Rehnborg. Raul, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you taking the time for us. Valleyfair to me it's one of those parks that I have not gotten to in my my travels. And I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit more about, why it's kind of the hidden gem in the Cedar Fair family, as it were. But let's get to know you a little bit better. I know you're about a 35-year veteran in the amusement industry, and you got your start in park services. But how did you first get your start in the amusement industry?
Well, I guess I would just start by saying that the process of getting a job in the amusement park industry caught me a little off guard. I was at home watching TV, typical 17-year-old, when my mom surprised me by telling me, "Hey, Raul, get in the car. We're going to Knott's Berry Farm." And so I remember being surprised at that point that she had decided to spend the day at a theme park with me with virtually no warning. It wasn't until we were about halfway there where she let on that we were going to a job fair that she had read about in the local paper, and that day would be the day that I got my first job. And I remember waiting in line, being real nervous, having no interview experience, much less work experience. And I knew I wanted a job where I could walk around and be able to interact with guests, which was interesting in of itself because I was a pretty shy teenager growing up back then. And so I ended up in the sweeper department known as Park Services. I ended up working there 12 years, really working my way up from a seasonal sweeper to the department manager position. Man, I loved it. It was the perfect job for me.
So before you got that position at Knott's, were you a big theme park fan kind of growing up in that area?
Yeah, so I guess growing up in Southern California, you can't help but be a theme park fan. I remember how fun it was when me and my family would go visit the various parks. We were blessed to have Disney and Six Flags and Universal, and of course my home theme park of Knott's Berry Farm. So it just brings back so many fond memories for me and my family over the years, and I was introducing that to my kids growing up.
Absolutely. And I know I was doing a little bit of research on your LinkedIn here, and I saw that you attended Cal State Polytechnic Pomona, and you majored in aerospace engineering. And I'm not pointing this out to you, but right now you're not sitting in the office of an aerospace engineer. You're sitting in your office up there at Valleyfair. Presumably you had to choose between industries at some point. What was it about the amusement industry that you kind of decided to chase that dream rather than one in aerospace engineering?
Right. It's a great question. I guess I just developed a passion for the business. When I started working at Knott's Berry Farm as a sweeper, I was 17 years old. I thought it was just going to be a summer job. And then I ended up working on a year-round basis. But as you had mentioned, I did go to school for aerospace engineering. And when I graduated, there was actually a 3-year period where I worked full-time in the aerospace industry and then part-time at Knott's Berry Farm. I kind of felt at that point that I was getting the benefit of the best of both worlds. But of course, I was tired, and I knew that I had to essentially make a choice moving forward. And that period was in the early 1990s, so it was also marked by some significant budget cutbacks in the aerospace industry. And so I think that just validated my initial inclination that I had to choose the amusement park industry. Working inside a cubicle in the aerospace was some pretty amazing stuff. What was one thing, but being able to walk around the park and interact with guests and interact with coworkers and look at just the incredible memories that we were building, it struck my heart, and I knew I was home, and so that's how I ended up in this business.
I hear you. And I didn't put this question on a rundown, so it might come across as a little bit of a surprise here. What is do you have a favorite boysenberry flavored item at Knott's Berry Farm?
Oh, man. So I guess I'm torn between the boysenberry punch and the boysenberry pie. If you get a chance for all the people get to work at Knott's Berry Farm, and you go into the employee cafeteria, you get all of the pop and the soda choices, but you always got a boysenberry punch option. And so that was my old standby. And of course, I got a sweet tooth, and so boysenberry pie is a delight any time of the day. So yeah, those would be my top two for sure.
Okay, perfect. And so after your experience in kind of park services, and you mentioned it was kind of the sweeper position, and I obviously it's known as park services and not sweeper.
Yeah.
But what was your kind of your biggest takeaway working in park services for those dozen or so years?
For me, it was an exercise in service, and they had so many different parts. One, because of course we're taking responsibility for cleanliness and making sure that the guest experience is a positive one. But it also taught me a huge lesson in humility. There is nothing more grounding than picking up and cleaning and serving our invited guests, and so that is a work ethic that stuck with me my entire career. And I feel fortunate to be able to have that experience that has grounded me. I walk around Valleyfair and I'll have, some park services attendants come up to me and say, "Hey, Raul, I heard it's true. You started out just like me as a sweeper." And I wear that as a badge of honor. I think it's one of the best jobs out there. There's a lot of great jobs, but the opportunity to be so service oriented and be amongst the guests and interact with them and see firsthand the results of our efforts was one that I had a lot of gratitude for.
I love it. And then after your time at Knott's, you kind of moved over to another Knott's property. You were the director of Soak City for a while. And then obviously from Soak City, you went down to Knott's Soak City in San Diego, and then California's Great America. Can we get just a very general overview of kind of what those years of your career were like, kind of moving up that corporate ladder, getting more responsibility, and how did you kind of ascend that corporate ladder?
Sure. So, working my way up through park services was a joy. Park services at Knott's is really a 24-hour operation, and we had a couple hundred employees, and I took full ownership of that operation and was proud. One day, the general manager at that time told me, "Hey, we're thinking about building a water park across the street. And can you swim?" And that was his question. And I said, I could swim. I could hold my own. He says, "Good. I want you to run the water park that we're building across the street." And it was kind of in a facetious manner, but he knew I was up to the challenge. At that point, I had very little water park experience, and so they sent me to Cedar Point for a couple of weeks where I learned that operation. And what the greatest part of that experience was being able to be involved in the development of the water park from the ground up. I got to be involved with the design team and really take into consideration operational considerations as we designed the water park in a master planned atmosphere. And that was a great opportunity. I stayed there for 7 years, and then they gave me the opportunity to go to San Diego and ran a standalone water park operation. That was a great opportunity for me because we didn't have the resources of the theme park across the street, and so we were much more self-sufficient. I got exposed to a lot more different aspects of the operation. And then one day, the COO told me, "Hey, Raul, we want you to run a theme park, water park combination." And so I was given the opportunity to go to Northern California up in Santa Clara and run Great America. What I really cherish about that experience is that it was during one of the most important periods of that park. When I got there, Great America was slated to be sold as part of divesting after the Paramount Cedar Fair merger. And so, that was an experience in of itself. Eventually, the decision of the company was to keep the park, and so we went through a full rezoning of the property to unlock potential investment. Going through that experience was really enlightening to me, particularly in a regulatory heavy environment like California. So great experience. Also at Great America, I had the opportunity to really be a key player in the development of the relationship with the San Francisco 49ers. They were our neighbors and our business partners. We came to agreement on how to have mutual access to the main parking lot, and that was just a great experience. And then, of course, my last year there was really the beginning of a significant level of investment to make that park into a world-class park. There's been tremendous improvements and enhancements made at that park in the last 3 years, and I'm excited to see where that park goes in the future. And then the last 3 years, I had the opportunity for the first time to leave California and move to Minnesota, one of the original Cedar Fair parks. Of course, people know Cedar Fair is an amalgam of Cedar Point and Valleyfair. And so, Valleyfair is one of the originals. I think it's an incredible park. rife with opportunity. It's such an important asset to the community. We have the benefit of operating in a growing market with a community that is very interested in outdoor leisure activities during the summer months, and especially interested in creating traditions with the family. So, Valleyfair has been a blessing. It's been a tremendous honor to be able to work at this park as well. And I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Perfect. I love it. And while we're looking to the future, I want to go back. I got to ask two real quick questions. When you were working with the designers of Knott Soak City, and you got to be part of the master planning, was there anything you got to kind of slide in there that you were like, yes, we need to have this, and people were kind of fighting you on it, and you kind of just pulled rank on them? Was there anything like that?
Oh, I'll tell you, we had so many opportunities to modify designs, and I was fortunate to work with a real collaborative planning and design team. If you go to that park, we have this amazing long lazy river. It's extremely long, but operationally, it's been designed to optimize the opportunities for the guards with very well pronounced walks along the river, access, sight lines. The landscaping is beautiful, but it's mindful of those sight lines. And so, whether it's that or the location of, the tube inflation area being close to the wave pool, there's so many different aspects that we knew that we wanted to be mindful of. Of course, Cedar Fair had many other water parks throughout the system, but to master plan one from the beginning, from ground up, was really the opportunity to glean all of the insights from my coworkers in Cedar Fair, and I certainly took advantage of that.
Absolutely. So you've held leadership roles in dry parks and water parks and combination parks. And if you had your choice, do you prefer the wet side or the dry side?
Well, I guess I'm fortunate to have both. At Valleyfair, we have both, and they each provide a set of unique experiences. But if you had to pin me down, I guess I would lean toward water park. I did 10 years at the two water parks that were solely water parks. And the water park is such a unique environment for so many reasons. I love seeing guests just relax on a lounge chair with their friends and family, listening to an acoustic band on the stage, sipping their favorite drink or cocktail. It really provides our guests an escape from the daily grind, and it really transports them to their own kind of little private resort. So when I go to water parks with my own family, that's my happy place as well, and I enjoy it.
And I don't want to put you on the spot here, but a lot of your career was in California, and now your career is currently in Minnesota. And maybe in climate terms, these are two very different locations. But what's the biggest difference between California and Minnesota, outside of the obvious? It gets cold in Minnesota, and it's a little warmer down in California.
That's a kind way of saying it. I'll tell you what, from California, I never really got to experience true seasons and seasonality. My wife and I have come to love the winters in Minnesota. That we've gone through three. And that may wear off at some point, but we love it. I guess from an operational standpoint, the thing that strikes me is the differences in local regulations from California to Minnesota is something that changed pretty significantly from state to state. But it's really the nuances of each site that make it unique. So coming to Valleyfair, I never had the opportunity to work with a labor force that was so comprised of international associates that come over on the J1 student visas. The opportunity to learn their culture and then expose our culture to them was really a great experience. The nuance of Valleyfair being situated on the Minnesota River, a river that floods every 3 to 5 years, is an interesting, unique aspect of this park that I've been able to experience. And so I appreciate the little differences. The commitment to service, of course, and creating guests is always the same, but every park's unique in its own way. So I appreciate that.
Yes. Well, you did mention every park is unique in its own way. And speaking of unique, I don't think we could have a podcast in 2021 without talking about something that went on last year during the COVID shutdown. And while Valleyfair was closed, I know you spent some time at a couple other Cedar Fair properties. I know you helped Schlitterbahn get open, and you spent some time up at Cedar Point for their fall Halloween event, their fall Fun Fest. And spoiler alert, selfish plug here, there's a really good article on Coaster101 that I wrote about Valleyfair's about the Cedar Fair team kind of coming together as one overall team. But what was your 2020 like? You were on the road quite a bit.
It was unique to say the least. We were trudging along in the spring as if we were going to open at Valleyfair, and when it became apparent that we would not, I had the opportunity to go to our water park in Galveston, Schlitterbahn, and run that water park for the summer. That was a great opportunity to be exposed to a different side of the business, water park, but in a market that I had never worked before, with a culture of Southeast Texas and Galveston Island. It was just a lot of fun to be able to experience that firsthand. Of course, it was very insightful for me to learn how to operate a park in a COVID environment, which we did last summer, and I was able to apply those lessons to Valleyfair subsequently when we got to open this year. And then in the fall, after Schlitterbahn Galveston closed, a lot of parks were able to send staff to Cedar Point to assist with staffing during the fall weekends. And so that was an incredible experience. I actually requested my entire management staff of Valleyfair to go out and do a month of service at Cedar Point. And I can tell you it was just an incredible learning and I would say humbling experience. For some of my staff, they hadn't been a frontline employee in decades. And other members of the staff who came from other industries, they had never been in the frontline capacity. And so, the ability to get a greater sense of appreciation for what our frontline employees go through every day in serving our guests was one that was pretty awesome to be able to do. And of course, no one can walk and visit Cedar Point and not just be amazed at the scale of the offering and the number of world-class attractions. A lot of my staff who had never been to Cedar Point, it just made them so proud to know that we are part of a greater organization that is just incredible on so many different levels. So yeah, it was a great year, an unconventional year, but we appreciated every opportunity that we had.
The picture that I'm remembering now that I wrote from this article was you in the Mac Shack with the big brick of cheese, and it was titled "The Big Cheese with the Big Cheese." So that had to have been a pretty fun experience.
Oh yeah. They have a name in that shop called the Mac Daddy, and that is a trusted position. And I had to work my way up to earn that position. But man, I loved it, and to be able to interact with the guests at Cedar Point and contribute was a great experience.
Perfect. And while you were up there, did you get to do any riding at Cedar Point?
No, not as much riding. It was a pretty service-oriented trip.
Okay.
But when the park closed, we definitely enjoyed spending time with our coworkers from all of the different parks. So there was a lot of bonding. But for me, not as much riding.
Okay, understood. I'm not going to Steel Vengeance. I'm sure is great. I haven't ridden it yet. It's one of these days I'm going to get up there and do it.
You both, yeah.
So, Raul, let's talk Valleyfair now. And again, I called it at the beginning of the show. It's kind of like this hidden gem in the Cedar Fair family. It's one of those. It's not your Kings Island, your Cedar Points parks people know a lot about. But what is your favorite thing about working at Valleyfair specifically?
For me, it's the people. I have been blessed to work with a very high performing team that is passionate about the business. They know that I have their back and that they have mine. This one team commitment that we talk about is something that is really a part of the fabric of this park. You saw that when they went to go all as a team to Cedar Point to help out. But at this park in particular, we draw on that every single day. From sheer numbers and resources and size, as you can imagine, our team is much smaller than Cedar Point. But we are small, but we are mighty. And we are extremely, dedicated to preserving and promoting the guest experience. I'm also proud to say that we've had so many of our members of management and associates promoted on to other parks in our system. We've had 3 or 4 this year go on to parks such Schlitterbahn and Worlds of Fun, and so we're just proud of this team and what we get done here, and it's a great work environment.
Yeah, I think the phrase is Minnesota nice. Is that a thing up there that like they've got this? I mean, I live in the South and Southern hospitality is a big thing, but this Minnesota nice and this kind of Northern hospitality definitely comes through at Valleyfair, right?
Oh, that is a real thing, and I've gotten to experience that both in the workplace, in my neighborhood. And so, yeah, it's culture is always different, as you can imagine, from California to Minnesota. And this is that Minnesota nice is prevalent in every or aspect of the community. And so, yeah, I enjoy that.
Okay. Is there anything you really miss from California?
I guess I missed the opportunity to, go to the mountains in the morning and go to the beach in the afternoon, and everything in between. So here it's more of a seasonality that you're going to live with. So there's a lot of fun stuff here to do in winter activities, and then a lot of fun stuff in summer. But you don't necessarily get to do both in the same day or the same week like in California.
Gotcha. Okay. Building off your favorite thing about working at Valleyfair, when it comes to your role as vice president and general manager, what is the most rewarding aspect of your job?
So I guess, I'd have to say mentoring people in this industry. I was blessed to have some great mentors over the years in my career, and I'm excited to be able to forward that back on to the people that work with me and for me. I've had former associates that have become doctors or even successful managers within Cedar Fair or in other amusement park industries. And I can't tell you how many times I've received a note or a text or an email from one of my old coworkers telling me how much they appreciated the experience and the time that they spent with me and learned and applied it to whatever job they were working on. So, to be able to make a lasting impact on people long after they've left you really gives you a sense of satisfaction that is lasting and impactful. It reminds me that we're all part of something bigger and that we can impact people for years to come.
Perfect. Valleyfair they've got a big anniversary coming up in the next 5 years. Where do you see Valleyfair in 5 years and in 10 years? Like what do you hope to accomplish in that timeline?
I'm just really focused on continuing to build and make Valleyfair more of an experiential park. And when I say that, I mean introducing new and unique and exciting experiences. Now, in some cases, that might be ride product, right? As technology develops, we have the opportunity to introduce new and exciting experiences. But it also includes the introduction of limited engagement, immersive events. Our long experience with Haunt has demonstrated a sustained demand for immersive and unique experiences, and the guest response to Carnival this past year was equally as compelling. And so I suspect that we will continue to introduce new and exciting event experiences for our guests for years to come, and ones that really become a tradition. Traditions are so big in Minnesota. It's funny. I talk to people in the community, and one of our traditions in Minnesota is the Minnesota State Fair. In fact, I have a sister who's lived here, 18 years. And I ask her, have you ever been to the State Fair? And she goes, yeah. And I say, well, how many times? And she said, I've been 18 times. It's a tradition. And so I love that people have traditions. And my goal is to make Valleyfair a tradition, and not just going to the park once a year, but really experiencing these immersive events, whether it's Haunt or Grand Carnival or our Latin Weekend or anything else. That's what I'm aiming for.
I love it. I know you're not going to tell me anything. It's okay. I'm going to ask the question anyway because the internet's going to hang me up by my toes if I don't. You mentioned these new experiences. Can you give us any hints of things on the horizon for Valleyfair, or do you just want to wink twice at the camera and say there's more coming eventually?
Wink, wink, and I'm excited for the future.
Okay, very good. You heard it here first. Raul is very excited for the future. I love it. I want to talk a little bit about kind of your Valleyfair favorites. And I know you mentioned you're kind of a water park over a dry park, but we are a roller coaster podcast. Mm-hmm. So of Valleyfair's roller coasters, which one is your favorite?
Without a doubt, our wood coaster Renegade. That's a GCI coaster. There's just something nostalgic about a wooden coaster. Over my years in Cedar Fair, I've had the opportunity to be there at the opening of some of our most iconic coasters in Cedar Fair parks. I was at Knott's when we opened Ghost Rider. I opened up Gold Striker at Great America. And so, I just got a passion for wood coasters, both the classic ones and kind of the new generation high thrill ones. I have the highest rider count of Renegade of any other ride here at the park. That's my go-to.
And then what about non-roller coaster ride? You can throw water slides in here if you want to. What is your favorite non-roller coaster?
For me, it's relaxation time. I love either relaxing in the lazy river. We also have a high thrill option, our Raging Rapids River, where you go down on an inner tube. Anywhere where I get to sit back on an inner tube, and either it's thrill oriented or it's relaxation oriented, I'm in my happy place.
Got it. Minnesota is a state that loves its food, and they're known for their kind of unique food options. But if you had a go-to meal at Valleyfair, what are you going to eat?
Well, you know what? I have a bit of a sweet tooth, and so I always default to the funnel cake. We've had some pretty unique food offerings as part of events this year. During Carnival, we had a Spain tent that was cooking caramelized churros. I spent a lot of time doing some quality control at that tent just because I enjoyed the product. We have a chef residency at Valleyfair where we have a facility that every month we partner with a new restaurant in the Twin Cities. Last month we collaborated with a restaurant from Minneapolis called Ice House, and they feature an Italian donut ice cream sandwich that was really, for me, almost a spiritual experience. It was called Bombolini, and man, I couldn't have enough. So there's just so much to be able to satisfy a sweet tooth. Of course, we have incredible regular fare food offerings. And we're really looking to build out that side of the business moving forward.
Yeah, I think Cedar Fair as a whole over the past couple of years, they've put a lot of experience on that kind of what I like to call the culinary theme park renaissance. And it's, with your chef in residency program, it seems like you guys are right there with it. Again, you've talked about a bunch of these special events. You've got Valley Scare in the fall. You've got Grand Carnival. You've got Latin weekends. You've got, I want to say, like a corn feast, but what's your favorite special event at Valleyfair?
Well, I'm a little biased having just come off of the run of Grand Carnival, but at this point, I feel like Grand Carnival is going to be my favorite. We ran 12 days this year under capacity limits, but for the people who came out, I think it's safe to say we completely exceeded their expectations. The scale of the event was beyond anything that we've done in our 45-year history of Valleyfair. And between the incredible decor pieces, the unique food offerings, the elaborate costumes, and the larger-than-life parade, there really was something for everyone. And so I'm going to be looking to expand that event in 2022. We'll do more nights. We'll do new parade floats. We'll have new food offerings. We're going to probably run the parade a couple of times. I think that's going to be a tradition in very short order for Minnesotans.
I love it. Yeah, I got to experience Grand Carnival down at Carowinds this year and back in 19 at King's Dominion, and it is bar none one of my favorite times to visit a park, and that's coming from somebody who loves riding. I didn't ride one single thing when I was at Carowinds for Carnival because I was too busy eating, I was too busy taking in the live entertainment, and I was too busy taking in that awesome spectacle of color parade. So I need to get up to Valleyfair, and I know I'm just like preaching to the choir here. It's exciting, but as the calendar kind of turns to fall, there's a little bit of a chill in the air. I'm surprised. I mean, it's not snowing in Minnesota today, is it? I had Kelsey on the podcast back in like March, and she goes, "Yeah, it was snowing." As the calendar kind of turns to the fall, what are you looking forward to most with the return of Valley Scare and kind of the Halloween haunt season?
I'll tell you, we got such an incredible reaction from our market when we, announced that we were going to once again be, executing the Halloween Haunt event. There's such a following for that event, and it's, it's one of the few times like Carnival where the park just completely becomes transformed to a different place. Both in the walkthrough experiences and just among the midways. And so there are a lot of people that literally buy a pass for Halloween Haunt and come many times just for that event. It's part of the most impactful things that we do. There's a lot of people that try to imitate it around even in our market, but really nothing comes quite close to what we do here. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to do that this year, even with all of the different challenges from 2020 or 21. So looking forward to that at the beginning of October.
Okay. Do you have a maze or a scare zone you're particularly looking forward to?
Hmm. I'll tell you what, we have such different, unique experiences. Our chateau maze is one that I really have come to appreciate. It's more of a artistic statement with really elaborate costumes and characters. And I think we have everything from very artistic mazes to more slaughterhouse mazes and everything in between. The level of detail in that particular maze is something that I'm really proud of. And so, yeah, I guess I would lean toward that one.
Perfect. I love it. And I got a question for you, and this is coming from somebody who has worked at a variety of Cedar Fair parks. If you could bring one attraction from your California days to Valleyfair, from Knott's or Knott's Soak City or Knott's Soak City in San Diego or California's Great America, if you could bring one attraction to Valleyfair with you, if you could get one from one of those California parks to Valleyfair, what would you take?
That's a great question. So I guess I would say, and there's a similar ride both at Great America and at Knott's is B&M suspended coaster. It's such a great ride. It's a smooth ride. What I like about it is this unique perspective where your feet are dangling with no track. Of course, at Knott's it's Silver Bullet, and at Great America it's Flight Deck and formerly Top Gun. Those were great ride experiences, and they were certainly my favorite rides when I was working at those parks. And that would be an amazing dream to be able to have something like that at Valleyfair.
I love it. And then the last question I've got is I've heard kind of through the grapevine that you've got some ideas to enhance the overall guest experience, not necessarily just at Valleyfair, but in theme parks in general. But if you could do one thing to kind of focus on enhancing that overall guest experience, what are you guys doing at Valleyfair to kind of enhance those experiences?
Yeah, I think and besides introducing the festivals and really looking at ride product, introductions, it's really just focusing on the guest amenities that are very important in the overall experience. Something as simple and basic as increasing, shaded areas in the park, creating little pockets of gathering places throughout the park, enhancing, the seating and the dining spaces. We've been working the last few years of really upgrading the restrooms, and the restrooms that we've been remodeling are not what you would expect in a theme park environment. They're more like what you would expect in a hotel environment, and I think our guests have made that clear that they appreciate those kinds of enhancements and like to see more of those things in the future. All of those things, though very basic, have such a profound impact upon the guest experience. And so we're going to focus on that for the coming years. The other thing is, I think about incorporating the different aspects of operation in the overall experience. And I guess I would qualify it as an overall entertainment experience. And you're seeing this with a lot of investment at different Cedar Fair parks where, food buildings now have showcases and large decor pieces and show kitchens that the guests can see when they're in the facility, and almost making the food facility a part of the entertainment experience. And so I'm excited about those trends, and Cedar Fair is certainly invested in those, and I'm excited to be able to leverage those kinds of things at Valleyfair.
Yeah, I was at King's Dominion last week for their announcement of Tumbili, and I heard the phrase signature restaurant a couple of times, and it's funny you say that because that's the parks I visited, which Carowinds obviously is my home park, and Kings Island I visited earlier this year. They all kind of are developing those signature restaurants and signature concepts. So I'm right there with you that the overall theme park experience for a guest it's no longer just rides and shows. It is the infrastructure. It's things like the restrooms you mentioned and the food options and the restaurants themselves. I mean, it's such a great time, selfishly, to be a theme park fan because these parks are just going all out, and it's fantastic to see. But is there anything else you would like our audience to know about Valleyfair before we wrap this podcast up?
I just would reiterate, and this is something that really struck me during the COVID environment. The park did not get the opportunity to operate. And of course, we know how that affects us as a business. But what really, was borne out was how much amusement parks are part of the fabric of the community. I can't tell you how many guests reach out to us and let us know that they were pulling for us, that they would be back next year, that they would keep their season pass, that they couldn't wait until we reopened the following year. In 2021, when we did get to open, I had so many guests stopping me in the midway and saying, hey, I know it's tough for you guys right now. I know you're not as staffed as you want to be with this labor market, but we are so excited to be back into this park, and we are so glad that we're able to enjoy this with our family and our friends. And it really had a profound impact on me, because it's not until something's taken away that a lot of times you get a true appreciation of how important it was in the first place. And Valleyfair certainly, was that kind of asset. And so, man, that was really gratifying to me, and it just pumps me up to know that what we do is important and meaningful in people, in our guests' lives.
Perfect. Well, I don't need you to do it, but season passes are on sale now for 2022. And this way it comes across as me doing it, and it's not as sales pitchy, but obviously a season pass for a park, great value. You get to go as many times as you want. You park for free. You get discounts. So if you're in the Minnesota area, definitely consider a Valleyfair season pass. And if you're not in the Minnesota area, also consider a Cedar Fair Platinum Pass. I've had one of those for the past 5 years, and it's one of those things, don't leave home without it, because you never know where you're going to end up and all that good stuff. Raul, anything else? Check out the park on social media. I know you guys have a great TikTok account that Kelsey and the team over in marketing and communications are working on. And I get a good kick out of it whenever I see the Valleyfair TikTok pop up. But valleyfair.com and then at ValleyfairMN on Twitter and Instagram, and find them on all the social media. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Be sure to check out our website, coaster101.com. We too are on all the social medias. We're not as good and adept at TikTok as Valleyfair is, but we are at Coaster 101 anywhere you find us. If you're listening, make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, and all those other podcast verbs that help other people find us. Helps us get great guests like Raul. And when we can get great guests, obviously it's a thrill for us, but hopefully it's a thrill for our audience as well. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, fan mail, hate mail, or want to tell us what Valleyfair corn dish they should add for their corn feast, send us an email, podcast@coaster101.com. Thanks as always to JM Music Design for our theme music, and we will talk to you all again soon.